thank you for watching this video, which is about a housing development on land at Old Rectory Park in Cookstown. I'm guessing that most of you watching this video will have received a letter from me already. My name is Les Ross and I'm a planning consultant and part of the team putting the planning application together. We started the work about 3 years ago and we're getting quite close now to the stage where we actually submit the planning application after running through quite a few different layouts and different versions and talking to different people about what they thought about the scheme. I'll tell you a bit about that later on in the video. The purpose of this video is to tell you about the proposal as it exists at the moment, and also hopefully to get some feedback from you. So without further ado, I'll get the first slide up on the screen. So the first slide here is an aerial photograph just to show the site. You see a red circle there marking the location of the site. What can you see around there? On the western side you see the sheds associated with the Derrylorn Industrial Estate, and then to the south of the site you see the existing Old Rectory Park residential area, and to the north on the other side of the Ballinderry River is the Glenavon Hotel. So that's the general location of the site. Now just before I go on, I should say that we held an event in July 2019 over at the Derrylorn Industrial Estate when a few of you came along and will have seen these slides already. Well, I think it's just worth running through all this together, even for those of you who have seen this before. So yeah, the other notable thing in the location here is the old Derrylorn Church, which just sits at the road junction. You'll all probably know that. And our site just sits south of the old church. This next slide shows the red line planning application boundary. Just shows you a bit closer up. At any stage, whenever you're watching a YouTube video, just press pause and you can take a closer look at any of these. But I'll move on here. You can just see the housing development more clearly to the south, and it's a kind of a ragged edge there along the site boundary, and then the site extends right to the edge of the Ballinderry River, and those of you who know the site know it's a treed area. This next slide shows the area plan context. So Cookstown area plan includes a map and it shows you what the different designations are around the site. So the existing Old Rectory Park is just white, there's no designation on that, and the land itself is also regarded as white land. It's within the settlement limit, and that means there's a presumption in favour of development. But and the pink area there is the Derrylorn Industrial Estate on the opposite side of the Sandholes Road. There's two other designations, the LLPA1 to the north, and that's that green hatched area, and LLPA stands for a local landscape policy area, and that refers to the trees and so on along the Ballinderry River and the whole character of that area and around the Glenavon Hotel. So that area is noted for its special landscape character, and there's a protection in those terms, and that also includes the area of the old church. And then AAP1, that refers to an archaeological designation, so it's saying that the land there may be important or is important in terms of archaeology, and we need to be sensitive and respectful of that. Okay, moving on, next slide. This is a nice old map that I found that shows why it's called Old Rectory Park. So the old church is clear there on the slide up along the river at the road junction, but down there in the centre of the picture is the former rectory building, which would have been the Church of Ireland Rectory at the time, and you can see that's very much a planned landscape, large gardens, structural planting, trees, and it looks like a walled garden there, and other formal pathways and lines of trees and so on. So the Old Rectory Park name refers to the fact that there was a rectory there historically. The next slide shows the existing topography of the site. Those of you who know it will know that the land slopes downwards towards the river, going sort of north in that image. And as you get closer to the river, those levels become quite steep. The land levels steeply fall down to the river, and it is a lot of tree cover down there as well. The blue line across the centre of the site on that survey, that shows the line of the existing public sewer. Okay, this next slide just shows an aerial photograph that we took back in 2019. Just to give you a character of the site. So away in the distance there is the Keylight factory on the other side of Sandhills Road, and then you can see the existing access coming in there off Sandhills Road and the Old Rectory Park, and a couple of the houses that are there. The site itself, you can see it's all tracked and dirty. There's been machinery over there at that time. Some of the scrub had been sort of tidied up on the site. And then on the right hand side of the picture, you can see the existing trees along the river bank, and you can tell from that photograph how steep that land is down onto the river. So the key issues for this site are, as shown in this slide, the access and the traffic issues, and that's something that we heard quite a bit about during the public consultation event in July 2019, where people had highlighted to us, there are problems at peak times with exiting the existing junction out onto Sandhills Road, and it's something we've had to take into consideration, and we've actually redesigned the scheme following those comments that we got from people. The other big issue is how the new housing will interact and sit beside and integrate with the existing housing. So that relationship is obviously really important, and people who live right beside the site are rightly concerned about ensuring that the new houses don't overlook them and don't interfere with their private amenity. The archaeology associated with the old church is obviously very, very important, and we've had an archaeologist on our team who's done a report, who's done a dig actually, and has advised us on how we lay out the housing development in respect of the old church, both in terms of what's potentially underground and the visual relationship between the church and the new housing development. The ecology again is an important consideration. Now the site itself is limited or no ecological value itself, but as you get down the river bank and that into that area, the ecology and the trees and so on are more important. And I mean, as you'll see later on, the idea is to protect that and enhance it and use it also for public benefit in terms of the visual amenity that it affords, but also the public open space and allowing people to interact with that space and get into it. And then drainage is an important issue. That's more of a technical issue. And the whole character, and what we mean here is there's an established character within the housing development itself at the moment. There's a particular style of house, and we are, one of the things is that along Sandhills Road, the entrance into the site is a little bit untidy because this site looks quite untidy at the moment. So the idea is, how do we improve the whole character of the site by enhancing how the place looks when you're driving along Sandhills Road, that entrance and that attractive sort of character that we're trying to create along the roadside, and just basically tidying the whole place up so that everybody can look at it and say, yeah, that's a nice looking place, it's an attractive place to live. So moving on to the next slide, this is my scribbles just right. So let's just run through the green area is obviously the existing trees. That purple line up beside the Derrylorn Church is indicating there is, we have to protect and be sensitive to the boundary of the church. The blue line is the line of the sewer across the site roughly. The pink lines is those places where we need to be very sensitive to the relationship between the proposed housing and the existing housing. Now, this will be of interest to you that the two yellow arrows are the places where this site can be accessed from. So the first yellow arrow, you'll notice it's not on the location of the existing Old Rectory Park entrance. It's just a little bit further north, and that indicates that what we're actually proposing here is to provide a brand new entrance into Old Rectory Park and close up the existing entrance. And you'll see later on in the drawings here how that's being proposed to be done, and that's to improve the ability to get in and out of the site, basically. The other yellow arrow out on the other side, on the left-hand side of your picture, that shows a place where an access can be taken in between, beside number 30 Old Rectory Park there, and that's a very obvious sort of gap in the development, quite obvious to anybody who's living in and around there that's been left there for a reason, which is to access that part of the site. So moving on, this drawing is an engineering drawing to show where the new access would be, which is marked red. So that's the access point. Now this is an up-to-date drawing, it just gives you an indication of where it would be. It shows you that you'd have a right-hand turn lane to enter the site whenever you're travelling northwards there along the Sandholes Road, and you'll also see that the old access there beside number 1 is being closed up and removed. So that's generally the roads access concept. Now, as I say, that's not the most up-to-date drawing, but that shows you how it's going to be laid out. Moving on. So the basic concept is indicated just with this scribble drawing here, which again shows those two yellow arrows, how you get in and out of the site, and then it shows out on the Sandholes Road an active frontage and the importance of attractive new buildings there onto the roadside, just to enhance the character of the site and also the character of that entrance for everybody who lives in Old Rectory Park at the moment. And then our concept is that you have an access that connects to the existing road, but a different access through the spine of the planning application site and along the top of the bank there, top of the river bank, and then you have housing that faces down towards the river bank and takes advantage of those very attractive views and that very attractive setting there. And then on this scheme we're showing how the idea of in-depth housing, and this is the same sketch that I showed way back in July 2019 to those of you who attended. Okay, so the next sketch here shows our first draft layout, which we showed at the public consultation event in July 2019. Yeah, so that maybe shows you in a wee bit more detail what we're thinking about these houses that front down onto the river bank, about a good sense of frontage and along the Sandholes Road, and how you'd connect the existing and proposed housing there. So I'm not going to dwell on this too much because we've moved on very much from this layout, but this was the initial concept. So one of the things that we changed at a later date was, you can see that beside the church we had 2 blocks of apartment buildings there just up in the corner. So based on the public consultation response and also the discussions we had with the planners, with the Environment Agency, and our own archaeologist, we decided we would abandon that idea. That was an idea for what you'd call over 55 style apartments, but just the bulk, the massing of those buildings, we felt at a later stage was inappropriate, and we've now showed a few detached dwellings down in that area of the site. But overall, the concept remains sort of largely like this as we've moved through. So you have this main spine with the units towards the river, you have the attractive frontage of that access, and you have attractive frontage along Sandholes Road, and you're trying to integrate the whole development with the existing housing style in terms of detached and semi-detached houses close to where there are existing detached and semi-detached houses. So moving on, our second draft then, very much the same, but as I said, see the area that's outlined red up beside the old church, you can see that's now 3 detached dwellings. So yeah, so that sort of followed the consultation process, and we had a meeting with the town planners in Mid-Ulster Council in September 2019 when we discussed this scheme, and then we met them again actually in March 2020 to talk about this. I think that was an online meeting at that stage, and we were getting at that stage as well feedback from the statutory agencies about their thoughts. I mean, some of the key issues were how do you integrate the existing open space, the proposed open space with the new housing, where do you have pockets of green space within the site, what size are the gardens, how do you deal with some of the the steeper slopes in the site, and make everything sort of work in terms of traffic and access and so on. So yeah, there's a lot of work was going on at and around that stage of sort of late 2019, early 2020, and then of course the pandemic hit, and that all took us by surprise, and it really took the momentum out of the scheme. And that's one of the reasons you haven't heard from us for so long, is that for a while it was very difficult to get on with the scheme, and not too much happened for a time. I guess that was sort of across the board with a lot of different things. So yeah, it wasn't really until later on, sort of autumn 2021, when we really got the momentum going again, and we had a series of team meetings then where we started to really work up this scheme and work up the details of the scheme, and that led on just this slide to the third draft layout. And this is our layout as it exists today, and this is the one that I'm looking for a bit of feedback on from you. So this is actually quite a different layout than the one before. Still got that same idea of the spine and the houses facing onto the trees along the riverbank. It's still got the same concept of the new access on Sandholes Road and that loose detached form of development along the roadside there. But the main difference here is we don't have the in-depth housing. So you'll notice that all of those houses that face down towards the river have nice long gardens, rather than trying to put houses in behind those and put roads down into the rear of those to open up that space. We decided, let's just have longer gardens, fewer houses, and that's the massive change between the second and third draft proposals. So you can toggle about with your YouTube video there just to see that. So as it says there, a simplified layout, and we're looking great detail at the relationship between the existing and the proposed houses, and making sure that there was no even hint of a conflict arising between an existing house and the new house that would be going beside it. And I think we've managed that quite well. So what I'd encourage you to do is pause the video here, have a really good close look at it at this point. Okay, so thank you for listening to the video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope you know more about the development now. Next stage is that we would like to get your feedback on the proposal. So I'm just going to put up some details on the screen here now. We're going to be making the planning application hopefully by the end of March, but there's still time to refine, to change it depending on the comments that we receive from you. So you can write to us or call us or send us an email. All the details are on the screen. I'd like to have those comments back from you by the 7th of March, please. And finally, I just want to say that whenever you make comments to us, those comments don't go to the planning department and the council. So once the planning application goes in, if you want to make comments on the application at that stage, it's very important that you make those comments directly to the council at that time, but that'll be notified in the local press when that planning application is submitted, and anybody living close to the site will also get a letter from the council telling them that the planning application has been submitted. So yeah, just thank you very much for bearing with me, and I hope this video was useful. All the very best. Bye.